Wow. If only it was that easy.
Wow. Remember, you sleep next to her tonight.
That's true.
Yeah, one eye open.
Hey, remember, she sleeps next to me, too. All right, the 4 R's of our reformers. The 4 R's, okay? So what we did is this. We talked about the first things that we need to remember is our position in Christ. We're crucified with him. The second one is that before God can do anything with us, we need to understand that we're helpless without him. Not hopeless. Well, hopeless too. Helpless. We have to get weak before he can give us strength. The next one was the power to gain victory comes only through Christ living in us. I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things, but only through Christ. Because, I've been teaching this in Sunday school. God continually gives us more than we can handle. And sometimes much more. But if he gave it to us, if we will stay with him, he will give us exactly enough strength to get through us. One of the things that's kind of irritating, if I'm allowed to talk like that about God, but one of the things that's kind of irritating about this thing about power and God and doing stuff is he doesn't give us any excess power. I would like it if he would give me excess, enough to handle that and a little bit more. But I got this thing that is just way too much for me, and I get a hold of him with him, and he takes me to exactly, so I have to exactly, I don't have any leeway, I don't need slack here. It's not like, a little bit more so I can relax for a minute. It's just enough to get through it. And it really is. It's critical that I stay with him all the way through it. And then afterwards, then I grow, and then pretty soon he'll bring another one up. But it's kind of irritating, but it's the only way that's going to work. Because if I don't have to stay with him so many times, I slack and I don't. But if I have to, I will. And God knows that. So we just kind of get that. So letter D on here, the next one we're at is we're going to take Galatians 6, 7 and 8. I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God. I'd never really heard that before. I don't live by my faith, I live by his faith, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. So we're going to take those two verses. I'm sorry, those are not the right two verses. I'm sorry. I apologize. Oh, sorry. Be not deceived. But they're all good. That's what this chapter is about. But right here. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life after everlasting. So we're going to take those and dissect and define them and talk about them a little bit. So I just read that in Galatians 6, 7, and 8. Now I'm going to read it and just kind of throw some words in here. And then we'll go and take them out individually and look at it. Be not deceived, which means to be misled or go astray. God is not mocked. Yeah. Now the word that Brother Currington uses here is imitated. It's not like I'm making fun of you. I'm imitating, trying to be like kind of on my own, trying to do it on my own. I'm going to imitate God. That's kind of mocking to God. Okay, God is not mocked or ridiculed. For whatsoever man soweth, that means to scatter or plant, because that shall he also reap, which means to harvest or gather or receive. For he that soweth to his flesh is our desires, our worldly nature, our soul, our wants, needs, and stuff, our stuff. So he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh, we sowed it, we shall reap corruption, we're going to reap it, ruin. But he that soweth, scatters or plants again to the Spirit. If we follow God's will, then shall of the Spirit shall we reap. We'll reap of that. We'll harvest, gather, receive, life everlasting. Starting now and continuing forever. We don't do this to get to heaven. We do this because we're living forever. And we want our life, we want that life to be a good life here on earth, and then when we get into heaven, obviously it's going to be good, but here on earth, I want that life. I want the abundant life. I don't want to live in misery. So that's what this is talking about, life everlasting, okay? So first of all, be not deceived, misled. God is not mocked or imitated. So how do we mock God? What do we do that imitates God? What do we do there? We mock God when we live as if Here's what irritates him. This is what he doesn't like. We live as if we have control of our own consequences for our wrongdoings. We live like we think. I know I did this for years. I still do. I know that I'm not supposed to do that. And if I do, I'll probably get caught. And the consequences will be, okay, I'll go ahead and do it anyway. I just like plan it out like this is what's going to happen. And I act like I have that control. But I don't. Because it's not up to me. And especially when God finds me doing that and listens to me doing that, then he'll say, okay, let's try some other consequences. Something maybe that never crossed your puny little mind. Yeah. Let's drop this house on your head. And you're like, oh, that wasn't in my plan. That's what mocks God. He doesn't like that. We're stepping in a place of God. If I do this, this is what I'm going to get. That's not our place. That's God's place. That's his place. I do what he wants me to do, and he does what he wants to do. He rewards me with the rewards that he wants to give, not what I think I've earned. And the same on the bad side, too. You know, he'll probably just ground me for a week. You know, maybe spank the fire out of me. It's what he knows is right, not what I think I need. We take our life into our own hands, and we do something we know is a sin, or disapproved of by God, and we think that if we control the atmosphere and surroundings in which we do this sin, then we control the consequences of the sin. I'll be really careful. I won't do too much. I'll just do a little bit. I'll just eat one potato chip. And that means one at a time until the whole stinking bag's gone, right? I just ate one. And then, wait a minute, I ate another one, but I just ate one. I didn't pick up a handful and jam it into my mouth. That would just be wrong. And that's what we do. We justify. We make excuses. We explain to God why that wasn't so bad. Okay? And we think that. We think we have a handle on it. And, you know, all the little phrases here, I can keep from drinking too much. A little bit won't hurt. I can do drugs and hide it from the police and my employer. You know? And see, here's the thing. Satan will encourage that. You understand that? Any of these things you say, he will allow it to work for a while until it doesn't. And he will just take you along and things are going swimmingly, and all of a sudden you get sucked into the vortex and you can't get out. You hit the riptide and you're gone. Okay? It's little swimming metaphors there. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I can just look at a little pornography. No. That's a thing that just inside, it just grows. It just gets out of control. I can spend just a little time with this person who's not my spouse because I really enjoy them. They make me feel good. They say nice things about me. I wouldn't plan anything. It just happened. Well, think, okay? I have it under control. That's the worst one. I have this under control. No, you don't. Anytime you ever catch yourself saying those words, you really need to step back and just say, hey, wait a minute. Those ain't good words. That's a flag. That's a yellow flag. That's a warning. But we believe it. But we've got to set in our mind, for what I've had to do, is I've got to set in my mind that when I catch myself thinking I have something under control, like this thing goes up and it goes bing, and it says, wait a minute. What did I just say? What did I just think? What does God have to say about that? Because that's not a good words, because that leads to a very bad place, because it always starts small. Okay, we're imitating God by pretending we have the power to control our circumstance and our consequence, and we just don't. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I truly don't. I mean, I don't know. I could get up and everything could go with just boom. I don't know. Now, I don't think it's going to, and I'm not going to plan for it to. I'm going to operate as if, but I can't get into the mindset of, well, I just know this is going to happen. It doesn't mean we don't make plans for the future and stuff, guys. That's not it at all. But don't think that you have it, that this will happen. You know, a good example, we were talking about finances, just kind of joking around and stuff. And Pastor uses this illustration all the time. I've seen this so many times. There's a guy right now that I know that just got a lot of money, like a lot of money. And I'm just so afraid that in his mind he's going to say, look, I can do anything I want. And he can. But the problem is that it can just go so fast and have nothing to show for it. And I told him, I'm not in financial, I said, you need to find someone, put that stuff away where you can't touch it, where it's paying interest. Live off that. Don't even think about that principle. And it's so hard to do. Okay, and that's just one example. But we just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't count on it. We plan for it. We do our things. But we just don't know. Okay, so we can't, just because you're making really good money today, what happens? So you go out and buy this car that you can afford, but you don't really need, but tomorrow you lose your job. Well, wait a minute. What happened last March? And so many people went upside down because all of a sudden it just wasn't there anymore. Through no fault of their own, it just changes. So we got to be careful. We live like this. We live like we don't really have a ruling authority, God. That's how we live sometimes. We live like we have control, and the reality is we do not have control. God does. We just can't live there. Job 38, 4 and 5. Where wast thou when this is God speaking, where wast thou when I, God, laid the foundations of the heaven? This is where Job gets his heart right with God. Because God finally says, wait a minute. Now, I'm going to say something, because God hasn't really said anything up until now. It's just been Job telling and the friend saying. And then God says to Job, where were you? Where was thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Explain this to me. Tell me about it, okay? Who has laid the measure thereof, if thou knowest? Or who has stretched out a line upon it? Proverbs 30, verse 4. I love this one. Who has ascended up into heaven or descended? Who has gathered the wind into his fist? Who's bound the waters in the garment? Who hath established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? And what's his son's name, if thou can't tell? Amen. It's like, was it you? No, it was me. And Jesus is my son. And that's his name. And we get like, we get this, like we try to stand in the place of God. I've got this. And we've got to live understanding I don't got this. God, you have it. So whatever you're going to do, it's great. I'm going to serve you, and I'm going to follow you and do what you tell me to do. Understanding you have control, I don't. We've got to do that. It's not natural. It's not easy, but we have to. We don't have to, obviously, because we don't, but we should. That's where peace, joy, contentment, those things, that's where those are going to come from. And if that's what you want to have put into you, that's how you have to live. Romans 11, 33 and 34. Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. We can't ever. How unsearchable are his judgments. The depth, unsearchable. And his ways are past finding. We don't understand God. We can't explain God. We can't describe God. We can do just a little tiny piece of him. And that is awesome. But there's so much more. There's so much more. And we start thinking that we're really smart and we got this, we understand. For who hath known the mind of the Lord? Or who has been his counselor? Now, unfortunately, I find myself counseling God more often than I should, fairly often. Have you ever, I'm just being honest. I'm like, God, you really need to do this. God, I pray, God, help this person. Do this for this person. Now, I'm not sure that it's bad to say, God, I really want you to help this person. But for me to tell God how he should help them, to me, that's like, that just doesn't sound right. I'm telling God what to do. I come with my grocery list. I need this, I need this, I need this. And if you get this by next Tuesday, you really need to work on that, boss? Come on, let's do this. Because I have it scheduled, so I need to have this. And that's kind of sometimes our attitude. And I'm only speaking for me. But if I'm there, so we have to be very careful. I try to be very careful about how I pray. Because I don't want to, but God does want us to ask for things. Wants us to beg for things. He wants us to have a broken heart for things. Yes, but not tell him what he has to do. Just open our heart and be honest with him. God, I need this. But if you don't, I still love you. Because I know that maybe I don't really need this. I just think I do. Show me my wants. Show me what I truly need. Give me what I truly need. Open my eyes to what is real. That kind of thing. Don't not ask. But I know that for years I prayed and I looked at my prayer and I thought, that was just so, what's the right word? Surface. So, I'm done now. I can go on. I just finished reading this page. Kind of thing. And it wasn't a conversation with God. I'm not sure that my wife would like it if I had written down what I wanted to say to her. I read it. It's like, we good? Okay, and I leave. Because that's what we do with God, sort of, That's not having a conversation. That's me telling her something. Now, it's not that there's not a place I need to express myself, but a conversation is give and take. And what is the most important part of communication?
Listening.
It is listening. It is not talking. And we don't, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, and your mouth is better shut because you have bad breath. Whatever, okay? I'm amazed reading through Proverbs, over and over and over and over and over again, it talks about the lips and the mouth. The word hasty, anytime the word hasty is involved in that, it's bad. Hasty words, hasty actions, hasty mouth, always bad. And in the multitude of words there is sin. And in a lot of words there is sin. The wise man is quiet. And when he needs to speak, he says as few words as possible, and he's quiet. It's not that he doesn't talk. But we get so enamored with hearing our own thoughts and voices. And I fight this all the time. I truly do. But it's better to listen than to talk. It just is. When I talked to the teens, I said, I'll talk to the guys. I'll be talking to the guys last year when I taught a Bible. I said, hey, if you want to get a girl to be impressed with you, ask her a question and then just listen to her for a while. That's a lot more impressive than for you to sit there and tell her all the wonderful things that you are. The guys are like, no, because I am so wonderful. They just, I don't know.
Jumped over a trash can.
I watched you jumped over a round table one time. And you're still paying for it. And you did it was amazing. But, okay, your wife was going, ah! I don't even know if you were married at the time, but I just remember that was, oh, my soul. Did you remember that in RU? He just leapt over this table and landed pretty good, but still, that was the back was for the next, I don't know, year. Anyway. So, we just have to be careful. Proverbs. It's not verse either. Little hash mark thing. That's number 9. Okay, and it's not the Beatles song either. We lose our freedom to choose when we give into temptation. To most of you, okay? Maybe. We lose our freedom to choose when we give into temptation. Here's the thing. When that temptation comes and we give into it, well, I can do that. It's not that bad. I can handle it. But see, the thing is, when we give into that temptation, what happens is we lose our freedom to choose. We no longer have choice. Because now we're following the devil. Now we get rebound in sin. It takes control. Okay? And there will be consequences. Okay? Freedom comes from choosing to follow God. That's where we have freedom to become who and what we're supposed to be, to truly grow, to all the good stuff. When we choose sin, that's where we lose that. We walked away from that freedom to be happy, to have joy. We no longer have that freedom to walk in peace, joy, contentment, and without fetters and bonds. Okay, because we're willingly doing what we're supposed to do. When we choose to do what we're not supposed to do, that's where we lose that freedom. And then the consequences are going to come. They're inevitable. They will come. You're not going to get around them. They may not be right away, but they're going to be there. Okay, and they're incalculable. That's the one I have to struggle with because I think I know what they're going to be. I told you for years, when I was a kid, I would think about it. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to steal some money from my dad's drawer and I'm going to ditch school. Go down to the hobby shop and I'm going to buy this radio control airplane because I really want it. Okay, and then me and my friends are going to go fly it. And I'm pretty sure I'll get caught And when I get caught, I get grounded for a little while. I get a stern talking, maybe a spanking. And, but that's okay because it's worth it because I really want to do this. I weigh it all out. Boom, I go do it. You see, but what I didn't ever understand is the consequences I'm still reaping them today from that decision. I'm still paying for it. I didn't count on that. And I had no way to know. And so that's the issue. Because we think we know what's going to happen. And exactly what I thought would happen did happen, but I didn't understand the long-term cost and the damage it would do to me. Unintended consequences. Okay, that's called collateral damage. And the cool part about that is collateral with God, collateral blessings. Because we don't do it for the reward. We do it because we love God, want to please him. And because we do that, and kind of disconnected from that, but because we pleased him, he chooses to do something nice for us. But it's not because I did it that he's doing it. It's because he wants to and he's God. It's a collateral blessing. Just a sort of an example is if I go out of my way to help someone, to do something nice for someone, and so I do this thing with no thought of return. I just help them out, and I go on my way. And maybe they don't even know that I did it. Because I did that, and I'm happy with it. I'm good. It's behind me now in my mind. God sees that, and he says, man, that was pretty cool. I think I'm going to do something nice for him down the road here. And it's an unintended blessing. I wasn't after it. And I didn't think about it. But because God, it's a collateral blessing. God, that is the way God works. He doesn't necessarily reward us for our good works. It's because of our relationship with him. And he does reward his children. That's an example for us to reward our children when they do something right and proper. We need to praise them and give them love. So that's positive encouragement, positive reinforcement. And then the spanking is negative reinforcement. They're both there. God does all that. But we don't want to get the child. This is what we got to be careful of too. We don't want the child to do it to get the reward. Because then it's like a payment for doing good. And that's not it at all. The reward is, you're such an awesome young man or young lady. I love you. You pleased me. The relationship is the reward. And then we reward them kind of in it just because we want to, and we're a parent and we can, and does that make sense? But we got to be careful tying it to the good work sometimes, because then they're working for it. So if they do the good work and we don't pay them, then they're not going to do the good work. That's not what we want. That's what we do with God a lot of times. But God, I'm teaching this Sunday school class. Why aren't you blessing me? I went out all the soul winning stuff. Why aren't you blessing me? Because of what you just said. Because you didn't do it to please him. You did it to get from him. We've got to be careful with this stuff. We've got to be careful. So when we think that we're in control, we're walking into bondage. We're giving control to the devil. True freedom comes from surrendering our control to God. God, number one, he created us. We belong to him. We're his. He made us. Then he gives us back. He says, I am giving you back freedom to do as you want to choose. Your freedom. Free will. True freedom comes in when we take that and we return it back to him willingly. That's where freedom comes from. That's what that's talking about. John 8:36. If the Son, therefore, shall make you free, you should be free indeed. There's no other way to say that. Okay? We'll stop here. Any